Hi, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to install a towel rack. Whether you're installing a towel rack or you're installing a hook such as this one here, or the round ring that actually goes on the wall, it's going to be basically the same procedure to drill through the wall to put the mounting cleat onto the wall. I will tell you this, I'm not pushing this particular brand. I'm just using this one as a demonstration purposes, but I do want to go through a couple things in this one. This particular one, it is a double towel rack. It's not a single rack. It has two actual pieces like this that hold the towel in place. Whether it's a single or a double, the procedure is going to be the same. So before you do anything, you want to measure first on the wall and see where you want to put the towel rack, at what height you want to put the rack, and how far away from your shower or your tub opening you want to put it. Because I already measured out to see how far out I wanted the towel rack and how high I wanted it. So I know I wanted 5 inches out from the end of the towel rack, and I'm going to go over this way, and I marked it here on the wall. Now what this particular one says to do is to cut out the template on the back right here so that you can actually put the template on the wall and get the holes in the correct location for the mounting cleat, because the bar itself has to be a set distance apart, otherwise the bar is not going to stay in the cleat and it's going to fall back out. So we are going to cut this out right here. I'm not going to bore you on camera cutting this out, but I'm going to cut this out right here, and we'll come back once this is cut out. But I just want to point this out to you down here on the floor. This is what you're going to need to actually do this job. Obviously this is the towel bar itself, and like I said, you know it's a dual towel bar, so this is how it goes. Very simple. This is how it goes, so we have to make sure it's a set distance apart so that it doesn't fall back out, right? So what you're going to need is you're going to need a drill, any type of drill at all. You're going to need a couple of drill bits. Now this particular one, if you read the directions on the back, it tells you you need to drill a 5/16 hole so that you can put this molly into the wall to mount this mounting cleat on it. But before we drill a 5/16 hole in the wall, we want to make sure that where we want to mount it, we don't have a stud in the wall. Because if you have a stud, you cannot drill a 5/16 hole in the wall, because the screw that they actually supply you with, these screws right here, if you screw these into a beam, you don't need to have a molly. So we're going to locate our beams on the wall first, and we're going to see if these pieces here are going to line up with the beam. If the beam is here, then we don't need to put a molly in. But if the beam is over here, then we need to put a molly in. So the way we're going to find the beam is we're going to take a stud finder such as this. And again, I'm not pushing this brand at all. This just happens to be the one that I have for myself. You want to find out where the beam is actually located. So we know that we're going to come out 5 inches. And we know that the rack itself is 24 inches. So we know it's 29 inches to the end of the rack. So what we're going to do is take our stud finder, put it on the wall like this, and now we're just going to move it across until we find the stud. And that is the end of one stud, and that is the end of the other. So we know that that is approximately the center of the stud. Now what we're going to do is we're going to measure from the center of this stud over to here where we want it to be, and we know it should be 29 inches away if we're going to mount it into that area there at all. We're going to put it here, and we're going to come over, and we're 31 inches. So we know when we drill a hole, we're actually going to drill it right here, and we know there is no stud there. I'll show you. Stud, and no stud. So we don't have a stud where we're going to mount this in here. So we are going to have to put the mollies in here, and now we'll see where our next stud is located. And here is our next stud, and we know we're going to be mounting it over here. So in this particular case, we do need to drill the 5/16 hole in the wall to accommodate the molly. But if there was a stud in that location where you're going to put it, then you would just drill a very small pilot hole, and you would drill this into the wood so that you can actually screw that screw directly into the beam itself. That's not the case here, so we're not gonna do it. We are gonna use these mollies. All right, so the next thing you're going to need is you're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver and of course a pencil. And then we're going to cut this out. And once we cut this out, we'll come back and we're going to use this piece right here. This is actually showing you where the cleat is going to be mounted on the wall. So this way we'll put the cleat on the wall and it will mark on here where the hole is going to be for the molding to go into the wall. So let's cut this out and we'll come right back. Now, one more thing I just want to point out in this particular one too. If you attempted to rip this cover, this piece off the box, don't rip it off because as you can see, this piece here is actually on the flap right inside here. All right, so let's cut it out and we'll come right back. Okay, now that we have our template cut out, we have it cut along all the lines where it's supposed to be. These little holes right here, we're going to take a screw like this and we're going to put a screw right through the dead center of where the mounting bracket is going to be. So we're just going to put a hole through it like that, which is where our hole is going to be. And we're going to do that on all 4 of these pieces here. We're just going to put a little hole in it like this so that the screw comes through the back just like that. Because this is how we're going to mark on the wall where we're going to drill the holes. Okay, so now these are marked. We put the holes through here. We're going to put this so that the arrow is facing in the up position. Always make sure if there's any kind of markings, you'll need to make sure it's set in the correct direction. This is the up position. So now we're going to take this and put it against the wall. And then we do have a change in plans. Remember before I said it was going to be 5 inches out? Well, we're going to change it. We're actually going to bring it 3 inches out instead of 5 inches. So we're just going to change the measurement from the end of the tile to over here where the first hole is going to be located. Okay? What we're going to do now is just going to measure out. Okay, so now we're 3 inches away from here. And now we're going to measure to the center of this hole right here. We're going to measure from the floor up to the top hole, so that way the bar itself is even all the way across. All right, so now we're going to measure from the floor. Okay, the floor to the first hole is 45 inches. So we're going to just mark that right on top. Right here. That's 45 inches right there. And now we're going to make that exact same measurement on this side over here to the center of the hole. We're going to make it exactly 45. And as you can see, we're going to go up just a tiny bit on this one side. And that is exactly 45. And we're going to put a small little line right here. We will erase these lines later, but right now we have it where it belongs. We're lined up on both sides. Okay, and now we'll take our screw and we're going to mark it right here with the screw, where we're going to put the first hole and then where we're going to put the second hole. It's taking the place of your pencil. We're doing the same thing on this side right here. Mark the hole. And mark the other hole. And now we'll take this down and you can see the holes are perfectly marked where we're going to drill. Now, remember what I said. If you're putting a molly in, okay, if you're putting a molly in, you need to drill these out to 5/16. If you have a stud behind here, you're not going to drill it to 5/16. You're only going to do maybe about an 1/8 of an inch hole so that you can put the screw into it, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch, whatever you have. All right, so here we're going to use the 5/16. So let's drill these out, and we'll continue with that. Now you can use any drill. You don't have to use this cordless type drill. You can use any drill at all. Now when you're drilling, don't push too hard. Don't push too hard and go through too far. You're just going to let the drill bit work itself, nice and easy. And then you'll feel it pop through. And now you can see you're into the hollow part of the wall. Same thing right here. Don't push on it, just let the drill work by itself. All right, we'll do the same thing on this one here. Okay, so now our holes are drilled. We can wipe off the excess right here. You take your molly and you fold this part in like this, and you take this molly like this and you put it in the wall like this. Push it all the way in. Like that. Then you take this little tool that came with it, you put it through the center hole like this, and you push it. And what that does, being that this was folded down like this, you put this behind it like this, and you're pushing this back out like that, so that this piece here is behind the sheetrock, and it'll hold it from pulling out later on. So we're going to do the same thing on all of them. Just like this, push it in, and then push it all the way in. If you can't push it in, you can tap it with a hammer, but they go in fairly easy. Same thing, you see how it's stuck? And you can feel it pop open. And now we're going to do the same thing over here. Fold it like this, and we'll put it in like that, push it in, and then we're going to use our tool, like that, and like that, and now these are ready for the brackets to be mounted. Now if you check your directions here, you'll see that it shows that the mounting bracket is going to be mounted with the larger portion facing towards the top. So that's the way we're going to do it. It's basically going to be like this, but just on the wall right here like this. And then this later on goes over the top like that, and that'll hold it in position like that. So let's put this back on the wall now. And we're going to catch both screws in here first before we tighten them up. We're just going to screw them in as far as they can go. You don't want to over tighten them and strip it out or break the molly. So you can use a drill or a screw gun to put this in. All right, then we're going to make sure that this is straight, and we'll snug these down like that. Our bracket is mounted. Let me put this bracket back on and we'll come right back. Okay, now we'll take our other mounting bracket. Now if you have a drill, like I said, you can screw it in with the drill. You're not going to over tighten it because you will strip it out. So we're just going to take this now, hold it up onto here. I always make sure it's tight with a screwdriver. I don't like using the electric drill and possibly stripping them out. All right, so now we have both our brackets mounted on the wall. And now we're going to come down to the towel rack down here. Now according to these directions, you're supposed to mount this onto the wall, but it fails to tell you that you need to mount this bracket into this piece here first. So now we know that this goes down because that is the screw that's going to hold it in place. And this piece is going to go over the cleat like that, and the screw is going to go through the bottom. But before we do that, we're going to take our piece for our towel rack itself and we're going to mount it through on here. And they give you the screws that you're going to need to put it back in there. Now if you're not sure how it goes, you can take a look at the picture here and you see the smaller rack is to the top and the bigger rack is to the bottom. So the way we're going to mount it, these are left and right side, I might add, because these are actually, if you put it here, it's mounted with the bigger one to the top, but if you bring it over to this side, it's the smaller one to the top. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our bracket for the back of it, we're going to put this on here like this, and now we're going to put that screw into the back. And they give us an Allen key to put it on there, so we're just going to catch it with the Allen key and snug it in just like this. You don't want to over tighten it and break anything. So before you do anything now, take a look at it, make sure it's right. Our mounting screw is to the bottom like that, and now we can snug that screw right there tighter. Okay, that's tight. And then we have the one for the other side. We're going to do the exact same thing. You're going to look to see where your mounting hole is on the bottom. You're going to put it like this. We know that the smaller part of the towel rack is going to be to the top, the mounting hole on the bottom, and this is going to go like this. And again, we're going to screw that screw in with that Allen key. If you try to screw it in and it feels like it's getting too tight, too quick, you may have it cross-threaded, so be careful not to cross-thread it. And we're going to screw it down.
What's cross-thread?
Cross-thread is when the screw screws into a piece of metal and it's going in crooked, it'll cut its own threads and it won't tighten up properly. That's what cross-threading is. Good question. All right, that proves my camera girl listens to me once in a while. All right, now after you have this tight, you can see that this Allen key here has different lengths. This is easier to screw the bolt in, or the Allen key. And on this side here, you turn it, put it in here, and now you can tighten it because you have additional leverage right here, right? So that's nice and tight. And this one is going to go over here like that, all right? Now there's a different size Allen key to put the lock tab in place. This lock tab here, you can see it has blue paint on there. That actually is Loctite. It'll keep it from loosening up. So we're going to put this in here where it belongs, and we're going to screw it in a couple of threads, and we'll screw it down. Again, if you cross-threaded it, you'll know because it won't screw in properly. And we're just going to turn it in until it becomes, till it starts to protrude out through the bottom right here. So we're just going to turn it in a little bit. Now, if you put your Allen key in, make sure that your Allen key goes in all the way, because if it's only partially in, you're going to strip this out and you're going to have a problem. So always make sure that your Allen key goes down all the way in so that you tighten it up correctly. I don't know if you can see that, but you can see it's just starting to come through on the very bottom right here. And now we're going to take this, and this has a little cutout right up on the top right here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little cutout that needs to go on the top of this right here. So we're going to hang this part on the top like this, and then put it in like that. Okay, and that's the one towel bar that's actually mounted on. Okay, now after this one here is nice and tight, we're going to take our second one and we're going to put that set screw back inside here. As you can see, that was a little difficult to screw in, and the reason it was difficult is because this key, I had to use the longer part on the outside, and I'll show you what happens. Whenever you turn it, as you turn it, it hits into here. That's why it was difficult, and remember, the wall is back here, so it makes it a little bit of a difficult situation to screw it in, but you know, you can screw it in a little further. Now that we know that that one went in pretty far, we can screw it in further here before we actually put it up on the wall. Okay. Now we're going to hang this back portion right here on the top of this cleat, and then the bottom part here is going to go behind underneath here. But before we do that, we're going to put the bar together first. This one goes here, like this, and then this one goes in here, like this. And now we'll hang the towel rack. Now, that cleat is in a little bit too far, so I'm going to have to back it out a little bit, just a little bit. See how that popped all the way down? Now the cleat is in position, our bars are where it belongs, and now we're going to tighten up that set screw right there. Again, we have to just go a little bit at a time.
just checking on you, making sure I'm doing a good job here.
Okay, so now we have that nice and tight, this nice and tight, and that is your towel bar. So you should have a little bit of, you can spin these a little bit, but they should be pretty tight. You'll have no movement in here whatsoever. All right, that's pretty much it. So that's your towel bar. Just make sure you don't over tighten these screws on the bottom here and over strip them or strip out the threads inside there. All right, and that's it. You're all done. So that's pretty much how you do a towel bar. That's my dogs just came to check on to make sure I did a good job in here. And that's it, they're finished. I just want to point this out, if you do not have a stud finder, don't worry about it. Don't go out and buy one. You don't need to have one to do this job. If you don't have a stud finder, you're going to mark on the wall exactly where you want the towel rack, the screws to go, where you're going to put the normally where you put the 5/16 screw through. If you do not put, you just drill a very small 1/8" hole, and that way if there's a stud behind it as you're drilling, and if you hit it with this small little drill, then you drill it in about 1 inch and you stop. And then you can just, you don't have to drill that 5/16 hole. You can just screw the screw directly into the stud, because the stud is much stronger than a molly is. So again, if you're not sure if there's a hole, if there's a stud in this wall, you mark where you're going to put it. You drill a very small 1/8 inch or a 1/16 inch hole with the drill, and you drill it through. If it goes into a hollow area, then you know there's no beam behind there, and then you would drill it to 5/16. But if you do drill it and it hits into a stud, then you just drill the hole 1 inch, the length of the screw, and then you can screw the screw directly into the stud itself. So you don't always have to have a stud finder. If you don't have one, don't go out and buy one. You can do it without it. All right, just want to elaborate on that. And that's it. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.